to just make a declaration regarding in-person meetings. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, this meeting will be held primarily virtually. As required by law, at least one representative from the village will be present at Village Hall, and the virtual meeting will be simulcast for members of the public who do not wish to view the virtual meeting from another location. The boardroom can accommodate up to 13 people, including members of the public body and the village staff, while maintaining 6 feet of social distance between individuals required by Executive Order 2020-43. Accordingly, the opportunity to view the virtual meeting at Village Hall is available on a first-come, first-served basis. Members of the public may view and participate in the meeting via online lakebluff.org/virtual meeting or dial in 312-626-6799. Enter meeting ID 880-3237-9888. Press pound when prompted for participant ID. Additional instructions are available in the agenda packet immediately following the agenda. Also, the meeting will be live streamed at lakebluff.org/channel 19. Broadcast live on Comcast channel 19. The host would like you to unmute your microphone. A recording of the meeting will be posted on the village website and periodically rebroadcast on channel 19. So the next order of business is approval of the minutes from the last meeting, February 22nd, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. I apologize. Was there any corrections or updates to the minutes as reported?
No.
Okay. All right. That motion passes. Next, we have an allocation of 15 minutes for any individuals who would like the opportunity to address the Finance Committee on any matter that is not listed on tonight's agenda. Drew or Glenn, do we have anybody who's interested?
Doesn't appear so. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds great. Okay. Hearing none, we will move to our business items. So the first item of business is a discussion regarding the water fund's operating budget, an overview, and an analysis of rates. We were given a number of spreadsheets to review regarding the water fund, and I would imagine that, Bettina, you might want to present to all the listeners your projections.
Sure. Glenn, can you let me screen share?
There you go.
Thank you. So as outlined in the memo and the attached spreadsheet, there's a one-time infusion of revenue from the 2019 GEO bonds that has spiked the FY20 unrestricted net assets. The payoff of the bonds in FY25. There's an annual $400,000 infrastructure maintenance investment as outlined in the long-range capital plan, and there are potential increases to support the infrastructure maintenance schedule. And then there's also the CLC draw with long-range rate plan that affects overall the rate analysis. So the chart that started out prior to the schedules gave you a view of the target balance, the blue reserve balance line where we need to be, and then how the rates affect that reserve balance. The orange dotted line is change in net assets with no rate change. So you see that after FY20, there's a pretty predominant decline. The red dashes is a change with the rate increase of 3%, and the green is a 3-year rate increase of 2%. I stopped them both after 3 years just for comparison purposes so we could see the slope of the line. It doesn't necessarily mean that's a recommended approach. It's just to create a better graphic. I don't know, does anyone have any questions on the graph itself?
Bettina, I'm assuming that that the dotted line at the bottom continues to decline as opposed to the other two that appear to be, flattening out.
It would, but I mean, in all honesty, the projections only go out to the years that are shown on here, so 27, 28.
Okay.
It would depend on the choices that are made and how that.
Right.
On
Okay.
the current scenarios, yes, the answer would be it would continue to decline.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, if I'm reading that chart correctly, you hit the 0 points at 26, 27 or 27, 28, kind of in between. Because that gray line is the 0 point, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And the goal is to stay at the blue line, which is the target reserve balance. Okay.
Yeah, and with the 3% increase, you are having a slightly positive slope on that dotted or dashed orange line. You have a slightly negative slope on the 2% change. So is there something in between there that gets to a 0 slope? I assume, just eyeballing it's probably about 2.5%, but.
Right, yeah, I mean, if you chose 2.5 between the two, we'd end up in the out years somewhere in between, right, true.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I think Cole's question is important, is what gets us to the point, I know this is a projection and quite a bit into the future, but is there a number that gets us to that reserve and just stays at basically a flat slope at that point? Have we made that calculation?
So because there really is a change to the scenarios and the projections every year. So if you look back at last year, same chart, different numbers, slope line was a little different, and there are a lot of variables that take into account for that. And right now, one of the biggest variables is our sales and the rates that Jawa was putting out, and those rates actually declined even more than what was projected last year. So it's hard to give you a definite number. It's definitely a rolling line. Obviously 2.5% would put you in the middle.
And then one other question, Bettina.
Sure.
Is the rate that Jawa is setting, is that also a projection, or is that, do we know that going forward?
So the rate that Jawa is projecting is based off of, I believe, their June meeting, and it's based off of projected increased sales. And they opted with reducing the rates further based on those increased sales, and that's what changed the number from the prior rate plan in 18, 19, and 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Bettina, another question. So if, in fact, 2.5% is the number, and we can kind of eyeball that from what you have here, that outstrips what generally is the target inflation in the American economy by about 0.5%. Do we have any insight as to why we have to raise rates about 0.5% more than the target inflation in the U.S. economy?
Well, we didn't increase last year, so that's a contributing factor, albeit small, but it's certainly a factor. We've projected in the capital plan to increase our maintenance to water infrastructure at $400,000 a year, which is kind of new to the whole capital plan. That wasn't there in years past. And to keep a maintenance program so that we're not looking at large projects in the future, so that we can hopefully maintain some of the pipes that need repair. So those two things are a little different.
Very good. That's helpful. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. No, sure. That probably would be the bulk of it, really.
Yeah. So no, I mean, to kind of sum it up, good, responsible, long-term planning on infrastructure is what you're saying.
Right.
Great. Thank you.
And in the out years, Bill, there's also projected in 25, 26 for an actual increase of, that's the $650,000 infrastructure project, and I have to go back to the capital list, but there's a special reason for that.
I believe that's repainting the water tower, Bettina.
Oh, there you go. Thank you. So there's some fluctuations to that, but baseline $400,000 a year.
Bettina, do you see any change given our new infrastructure for water meters? Do you see actually anything coming your way that would make you think that our change of infrastructure is bringing different figures from what you would be expecting looking at numbers?
So I've taken a brief look at from January until September for the non-revenue water that we are looking to recapture. And it seems to me upon initial review that the losses have definitely decreased. I didn't want to speak to the definite numbers behind that, but if I had to give you a projection, I would say that we're running about 10% versus the 21% that we were this time last year. But we'd like to, go out and get actual readings and be really accurate about that so that it's not just a seasonal change or related to COVID change or anything else.
Cool, very cool. I'm very interested to see those readings coming our way. Thank you.
And remind me, I think I remember though that we figured it'd take about 6 months to get some of that data back as far as finding out what the losses are or getting some actual data from the new water meters.
Right. So we were just mostly looking to get through all the sections and installation. There are still some remaining because some people, due to COVID mitigations, opted out, but are still waiting to have installation. So there's a small number with regard to that. But as far as the data is concerned, we can capture it pretty quickly. So what used to take us, a day and a half is probably about a 2-hour work effort. So I think that once the weather stays good, we can direct efforts elsewhere other than snow and try to get some readings and get you some information.
Great.
Bettina, I just wanted to back up a little bit in terms of the JAWA rates that we were seeing that are so much lower than they were in the past 5 years. Are the rates in terms of, you say the volume is going up, is it because we're increasing, or JAWA has increased partnerships with other municipalities, or usage is going up because our usage overall in Lake Bluff seems to be going down?
The forecast that JAWA's executive committee is using is including the projection of increasing the communities that they sell water to. It hasn't happened yet, but they're using that as a projection.
Okay, so the rate that we have in there, it's not a promised rate. It's not a rate that's been set. It's a best guess that the source is JAWA, correct? It's
their financial plan that was voted on at a meeting. That's where those rates came from.
Okay. Let me chime in a little bit on there because there was a meeting 2 weeks ago with JAWA. In the last year, both what they call the West Group and the North Group, and that's places like Lake Villa and Wakanda and Bolo, have all come into this. So now we originally started out as 9, we're now up to 13. So that will have effect on the water rates, at least coming out from JAWA. They are exploring possibly other things. I know that right now Lake Zurich may be a prime candidate. So, they're looking to continue to do that. But any decreases are right now because of the newest membership that we've had.
Okay, so you're saying that membership would have kicked in this year in 2021 because, or 2022.
That's when the full connections came up late last year. Yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of the projection is based on that expense, and we just want to be sure that we can hang our hat on that number. And if it's something that we're projecting, I just want to understand that. If it's something that JAWA is projecting, that's another story.
Right. No, it's their projection.
Okay. Bettina, do you think you could just elaborate a little bit on the $400,000 in capital each year, what that might include, just to have us, understand?
So I would defer to Jeff on that. That number was actually defined by him. So
great.
Yeah, that's a big round number. We haven't done a whole lot of water main replacement and updating in the past, I don't say 10, 12 years. I think it was the last serious bond issue, I think it was the mid-2000s. So that number is basically if you assume your stuff lasts 75 years and you are replacing it on that schedule. We are it's a little bit optimistic because we are behind that schedule right now. But that is kind of where that number comes from, is the cost of replacing water infrastructure, about 30 miles of water main. And if you bleed it out, for the full system and about a 75-year return, that's about what you end up with the capital investment annually. And I don't think, in the out years, we aren't, at least in the 10-year plan, pushing that up for inflation at this point. We're keeping with the 400, but that probably would have to grow at some point.
So that's looking at replacing 2 miles per year about, of the 70 odd.
I don't have a calculator in front of me, but if that's what, that's what that is. And but we have not done that ever.
Jeff,
not since I've been here.
Jeff, why don't you also talk about the other pertinences associated with the water system, to include valves and hydrants and so forth as part of that replacement, and the economies of scale of doing so?
Yeah, last year we did some hydrants and valves. I tried to lean heavier on the hydrants because when you replace water main, you can save the hydrants, the valves go away. You have to rip them out and put new valves in. But what we found was so many valves had failed, even when we were just trying to turn the water off to change the hydrant, we ended up putting more money in valves than I had hoped. But that's kind of, that if you replace that water main the next 10 years and you've just removed a valve after 10 years of service, what it could have lasted 50, 60, 70 years longer. So that's not the best investment, but we have operational issues when we have a water main break or want to change a hydrant. Sometimes we end up having to shut off, 4 streets worth of homes. So we're starting from not the best position right now, and we're trying to do this annual investment to at least bring parts of it up to snuff, and then hopefully things last a little longer. We have a lot of water main that's older than 75 years. I'm working with our GIS consultant. I'm trying to maybe get a map of, some of the ages of our infrastructure just to illustrate that for you. That's a couple months away at least to have that ready, but that's the goal is to have that prepared so we can see where we are and kind of project where we'll be in the future with this level of investment.
Well, it does seem like a lot of it is covered up, and you don't really know the extent of it till you get into the project. But with, the big infrastructure and capital investment that we make, not only with water, but, our streets and other things, you do kind of get into a capacity issue of how much can we accomplish in 1 year. And this is, $400,000 every year or more. And I just wanted to be sure that represented what we think we might actually be able to do.
Yes.
Yeah, it may be a couple of years from now we would do every other year 800,000 just to make it a little simpler on the construction end. But I was just happy to have that in the budget as an annual thing so we can start doing an annual program. And if it ends up biannual, then we can do double every 2 years. It's a little more efficient. This is a good start, at least from my perspective.
Jeff, question for you. How far do you think we are behind on, you say we've got quite a bit that's over 75 years. Do you have any idea, any estimate about how far we are behind on that?
Far enough that, it's hard to put it in. So I'm trying to get that information, but I would say we're pretty far behind. I mean, a lot of our stuff was put in, like the East Terrace, I think in the 20s. So that's almost 100 years old. The North Terrace is in a similar place. The east side has probably been half replaced with ductile iron pipe. I don't always look at the install date. It's more about the cast iron pipes are the ones that are more prone to breaking. And it's interesting though too, because you do dig up some 80-year-old pipe and it still looks good. We also had 2 water main breaks in 1 day last week. So we have had breaking issues, and it's hard to put an exact number on it, but we are behind. And, we've talked about, short of bonding, $5-7 million to try to catch up this annual program. And then, maybe if we have a bunch more breaks and things aren't lasting, we'll have to talk about a steeper investment if we want to keep the service as it is now.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead, Regis.
Sorry. You said something that is for $400,000 a year investment, you are replacing about 2 miles of pipe. Did I understand correctly?
That seems like more than I thought, but Trustee Inkeman did the math on that. I'm not one to doubt.
No, I don't think that math's not correct. If you divide,
thank you.
If you divide 30 by 75, you got 0.4 mile. Now, I think that probably oversimplifies, but the math would be less than half a mile if it's all proportional.
So if you do half a mile a year, is that actually even, I mean, I was doubting 2 miles, but even half a mile, is that reasonable from your construction standpoint?
Yes, we have consultants to help us with that. That's reasonable.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, Jeff.
I flipped the numerator and denominator, so sorry about that. Thanks, Bill, for catching that.
Math on the fly is always a risk.
I know. Use a calculator, Barbara.
Jeff, you said you were working with our GIS consultant. Any idea when we might have some more information on how far behind we are? A little bit more.
It's probably summer. We weren't focusing exclusively on water main, but that could be the first priority if we need it to be.
Great, thank you.
Well, I can only say that I'm pleased that we're grabbing this capital improvement approach with both hands, much like we've really tried to do with other capital programs in the village, and really begin to imagine where we are and where we need to be, and to attempt to try to smooth this and to the extent that we can, both in terms of finance and in the workload on Jeff and the engineering and headcount capabilities in the village is positive. So it's good that we're grabbing a hold of this and moving forward. I'm guessing that the story isn't much different on the sanitary sewer side of life either. We've got an aging infrastructure, and we've got to make the appropriate investments in it.
So the sanitary sewer improvement approach that we took in the capital projection sheet shows a $300,000 investment every third year, and that would be funded from the capital fund.
Yep. I guess my point is that the task is out there that for us to we're tasked. That's a task for us to accomplish. And it's good to have that clarified and visible.
And this goes back to the boards, in the past, trying to work towards this point, to have a complete inventory and to have, I think Jeff was asked when he first came on board, what's the magic number to where we established what is a continual investment in our road program? What's the equivalent for our other systems? And that's what you're seeing now, right? Now we're programming that and taking it to the next level, and I think what Jeff pointed out is a good one is, I think when I came to the village, I asked George Russell what's our best system. He said it's water. But you learn something new all the time. And one of the things we're seeing and that Jeff didn't mention is some subdivisions that are relatively new are experiencing a number of water main breaks. So some of these things aren't coming close to their performance, lifetime expectancy. So it's frustrating. So we hope this number is good enough, but like Jeff said, it was calculated based off what our network system is and what's a regular investment adequate enough to maintain and replace this system and keep it to where we're not want to be out there running out and sticking our thumb in the dike and trying to close breaks left and right. We want a reliable system. So that's what the goal is.
And to that point, I think it's also important that we revisit this data and do this analysis on a regular basis so that we can see, is our regular investment that we've committed to, is that enough, or is it too much, and we can commit it into some other purpose. So I think having this conversation on a regular basis is something that we should certainly do in the future.
And that's why I love including in the documents is the long-term investment going back to 1995 for the village, where we've invested in these various systems, and you have that historical analysis to see, what has it been over time, and you can see that it's been edging towards a regular programmatic effort, which the village has had the capability to do more recently, given we've had greater income coming in from different uses of property. The sales tax generators have been able to provide a steady stream of revenue that the village can continue investing. And as we talked about at the last meeting, that balance between pay-as-you-go and borrowing, right? That kind of trying to find that sweet spot. But That's all I have to say about that.
That's good. That's good.
Well, thank you. I guess looking at the water revenues and expense projections, you're recommending that, there be a small rate increase to help safeguard the health of the fund. And, if you're looking for direction from the Finance Committee, certainly all of the numbers point to, something between 2 and 3% being what will get us toward our stated goal of having a reserve that will be adequate. So are you looking for any other information from the Finance Committee, Drew and Bettina?
I think it'd be great to have some guidance, like if you're going to end up going with a 2%, or if you want to pick, say 2.5 or some number. I mean, I think that's our goal is to get more clarity on that so we can bring that to the finish line sooner in front of you all to get final approvals and finalize the planning, right? Because all those revenues help determine what, capabilities you have to do other improvements. So if it's clear that you want to do the 2%, and wait to come back and say, we're going to have more information, in the near future about how much we'd be able to capture in terms of water sales from the new meter system. If there's greater comfort that, that 2% keeps us to that happier point, or if you want to say, listen, we want to go 3% and then roll with that for a while and maybe do it for, a year and see if we want to adjust it to 2. I mean, either way works, right? But the idea is if you do the 2% now, that's the minimum probably necessary to, as you said,
Right.
stabilize the fund. And then take an analysis when we, halfway through the fiscal year to look at, okay, did we capture what we thought we were going to capture? That 8 to 10% based off the water meters. Did we find that? And if so, does that make us comfortable to let this rate ride, or do we want to go back and revisit that?
One question that I have is, and we've done this in the past for other increases that we've talked about, is what does this actually look like for the average household in Lake Bluff? Whether we do a 2%, what can we expect the average homeowner to pay, an increase to what they pay on a quarterly basis? I mean, I know what my water bill is, so I could probably do that math, but I don't know, if I'm an average household, or if we even have a so-called average household.
So I would say that, to speak to that, I'm not sure that we actually have an average household. We've never put out an average water usage or household number. It tends to try to get people to niche themselves into that usage, and then they call in, say I'm above the average or below the average, and everyone's usage is truly their own, depending on what's going on in the household or how many people are there or a number of factors.
Well, we used to be 100 or 125 every other month, and so if I just say 100 and a quarter, and the 2% increase is $5, a 3% increase is what, $6,
right,
or something like that. So annualizing that, we're talking about $15. Having watched, I watched with Jeff the repair of when we had the sewers relined, and it really brings it home. And watching over Christmas next door here, we had a line blowout, and I think if I said to somebody, your additional investment this year is $15 to ensure that you're going to be able to have Christmas dinner and be able to flush the toilet and all that kind of stuff, people would go, yeah, that's not an unreasonable investment for a year.
And I appreciate that story, and that's the point. That's the exact point I'm making, Mark. Is I think, we always talk about not wanting to increase taxes or fees, but in this case, the small increase can actually make a big difference in people's lives. So,
yeah,
I think we could certainly justify 2 or 3%. Of course, I'd like to do maybe 2.5 and split it, and see if that gets us to that reserve level and then level out after that. But this is not a big increase in reality to make a big difference in our infrastructure.
And
So
as
one thing
Bettina said, you're going to sit here, and I think you brought up the notion on a continuous, a continuing frequency of evaluation. You're going to look at this once or twice a year anyway, and whether it's 2.5 or 2.7 or 3.1 or 2.2, you're going to endeavor to try to take the best swag that you can, and to be good stewards, to be able to hit what's responsible at a 25% level.
Yeah, well, very plainly stated, what we have here is a critical function. So, there's a lot of places that you can defer. You can let a police car go another year, but with water, it's a critical function. So, to echo what Aaron said, I'd certainly be in favor of, perhaps a 2.5% increase. We check it every 6 months, whatever it is, see where we're going to level out. But cutting short on what is a critical function, that is clean, safe water, is, would be irresponsible. So, really to get to the point, I'd be in, Aaron, it sounds like you're at 2.5, I'd certainly be there.
Okay.
Joy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying here. I haven't said much because everything people are saying I agree with, but I guess I would just, if we go ahead and make an increase at 2.5% or wherever we end up falling, I guess I'd love to revisit it again when Bettina and Drew have some realistic numbers on the new water meters. So whenever that date hits, maybe we could go back and look at it then. I don't know if that would be 2 months in the future or 4 months in the future, but maybe when those numbers come in, we can revisit.
Yeah, I think we're all anxious to kind of see the fruit of all that investment, and it's going to happen. We just want to be able to quantify it and see it and feel good about it. So I'm sure Bettina will get that to us as soon as it's reasonably available.
I will, and to point to that, if you noticed on the charts, the projected FY 2021 number for water sales was higher than it has been in estimated number and in the past, because that was closer to the actual number that we're looking at. So that's why that went up, and then I just took it back down to where we originally were at with projections. So if we knew where sales were headed and the projected number would obviously change going out.
Right. Well, it's fantastic news. That's fantastic. Okay. So you have, do I need to have a motion from the committee to make that recommendation, or is just a discussion that we've had plenty enough to say 2.5 is what the committee is recommending?
In a perfect world, we'd have a
Is that
motion and a motion, yeah.
I need a motion.
So moved to recommend 2.5.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or do I need to do a roll call?
Member Meyer,
Aye.
Member Toll,
Aye.
and Chair Inkeman.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you.
carries. Yep.
Next on the agenda is discussion regarding the pay plan, the FY 2021 proposed pay plan. There was a couple of small changes, and Drew, would you like to go over
Sure.
what you've summarized in the memorandum?
So the memorandum in the packet really outlines what we wanted to convey to you all. One is a very simple change. Under the full-time salaries, again, with the whole goal of trying to provide a competitive pay schedule and avoid pay compression and help ensure internal equity. So we look at this annually. We sampled and surveyed communities that we look as comparable, and came up with some adjustments necessary, at least we recommend, to adjusting the max end of the building code supervisor to increase that to reflect market. That's the first element. The second element to talk about is we accomplish a lot with our small staff here, 34 regular full-time employees, but we do hire some part-time employees and interns, and most of the part-time employees come in the shape of seasonal at Public Works and also seasonal crossing guard folks. But we do have interns. This year, our village engineer is looking to bring in an intern without increasing the budget, using some existing dollars from our part-time building inspector. / engineering tech. There's enough headspace there. We have a employee who's a retired individual who's only worked so many hours. So Jeff would like to take advantage of an intern. And then also to clarify that not all interns work in the administrator's office, that there could be outside of that, and to kind of reflect that in terms of the nomenclature within the pay plan. And so it's striking the administrative from administrative intern to clean that up. And then also kind of cleaning up a way, or maybe uniformly addressing the pay scale, and to reflect that the state wage, minimum wage, is constantly moving. And so we just clarify that at the low end of the spectrum to reflect whatever the minimum wage is. And then the last items are, one of which is an issue that Village President Kathleen O'Hara has asked for, that'd be discussed this evening with regards to changing the village's holiday schedule. I'm recommending that we offer, this is a new program where we'd offer a one-time incentive to employees who give us written notice of a retirement, giving us a 6 months heads up. You know, as we continue to shrink as an organization, when people move on for retirement or other purposes, it becomes more and more impactful to us. And so to have that advance notice, it's very helpful, and for a small price, I think that would give us a much more comfortable landing and help prepare ourselves better. And it seems like, I don't know that we'd have a large universe of people ever take us up on that, but it would be helpful if we had this tool available to us to use. And then the last item is we have some cleanup that we're going to look to do to reflect some changes in law that have happened in case law that we'll present to you at the upcoming board meeting. It's not listed here, but some other simple stuff that's just purely administrative function based off law. But that's really it in a nutshell. So again, there's the full-time salary changing of the building code supervisor, high end of his scale. The part-time salary clarifying that the admin intern would be forever known as the intern, or interns plural. And then modifying the hourly pay ranges for positions to reflect the minimum wage. And then the personnel manual changes, one which I can certainly let President O'Hara carry the water on. And then the other changes that we're talking about with respect to the incentive for notification from employees. Happy to get more and more in any of those if you wish.
Let me just,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Barbara, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering about total vacation, or not vacation, total holiday days. You have 8, 9, and this is making it up to 11, or what's the number?
Drew, you want to answer that piece of it, and then I'm going to give my rationale for what I've done over the last 8 years.
Yeah,
okay,
so...
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay, quickly. When I became president, and I walked in a few days before Christmas for the holiday thing, and I said, okay, I understand that tomorrow, whatever it is Christmas Eve, so you all won't be here. And they said, oh no, we're here. Now, I came in, and there's nobody comes in to the village hall, I will tell you, on Christmas Eve. And I felt that, and I grew up in where you usually have, and maybe that's now not the politically correct terminology to use for it, but for the lack of purpose, we'll call Christmas Eve off. Pretty much everybody has it off. And to ask people to come into work on Christmas, I felt was, particularly for these people that work extremely hard. And then I also felt on Thanksgiving, let them off at noon. Again, there is virtually nil business happening at Village Hall at that time either. So what I have done under executive order for the last 8 years, I have, whenever applicable and safety conscious for going, is that I gave the day off for those people. And I'm hoping that we could make it permanent. I don't think it's a really outrageous thing. I think most companies, I would say even most municipalities, they're not open. And it's people have families. They have things to do too. And I think it is something, it's a very small perk, but I think it's something that we could do without causing any great deal of harm to the village.
Mm-hmm. And Drew, did you have numbers to share about the number of holidays that we presently have?
So eight holidays, 4 floaters. We did do some survey of a handful of comparable communities: Deerfield, Glencoe, Gurnee, Lake Forest, Lincolnshire, and Vernon Hills. As far as the Thanksgiving Eve holiday, none of those communities have that as a holiday. As far as the Christmas Eve, more than not have it, all but 2, and one of them, Glencoe office, is open till noon, but if you're going to take the day off, they charge you full 8 hours of the day. But what they do is not unlike what Kathy has done. People come in and close the door and say, go home, you know. But Deerfield does not have that as a holiday.
Mm-hmm. And I know you have the floaters, so, you know, for some people, Christmas Eve is it, you know, that's the most important thing, but for other people, maybe it's not. So, you know, certainly the floater is an opportunity to use it or not, or to have it for your mental health on some other day. So 8 total holidays plus 4 floaters, that's 12 holidays. I'm imagining that's kind of
standard
with other municipalities.
Yes.
Then?
Yes. I mean, some people have different days.
What are those? I'm sorry, Drew, go ahead. I was going to ask you what the 8 are, but go ahead.
Here.
Yeah. So one of the things we did poll too is, like, you know, we've been, there's several holidays that, you know, every community is different. Like Chicago, the city of Chicago's days are different than the village of Lake Bluffs. But, you know, one of the things that we don't have is we don't have Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. And that was one of the survey questions we asked the groups who did. And, you know, interestingly, none of them did as well. Bettina, I know you can share that again. I lost your screen. You had it posted and then it went away.
I did? Oh, sorry. Here. Got it?
Yeah. What does Columbus Day / Veterans Day mean? Does it mean it's one or the other, or what does that mean?
Exactly. No, you're
So
exactly right.
We're open, but staff has a choice.
Yeah, each staff member chooses a day. You're correct, Bill.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly would be in favor, and, you know, maybe this isn't the forum in which to get into it, but I would certainly be in favor of eliminating Columbus Day and in making MLK Day a regular. You know, that would certainly be what I'd be in favor of, as long as we're looking at this at the moment.
I guess looking at these specific 8 plus 4 equals 12 is 12, you know, on par with what other municipalities have. I love the idea of giving people, you know, time off for the days that most people want to have time off because it's a holiday, but then that's not everybody. Not everybody, you know, might want that. They might not value that, and they like the portability for whatever their life circumstances. They appreciate that portability. And so, you know, if what we're doing is saying that people are going to have less portable days, you know, is that what we're doing? Are we keeping the same total of 12 and making them less portable by doing this? Do you see where I'm going? So right now we have 8 named days and 4 portable. Are we saying we're going to add 2 more half days and then have only 3 portable?
I was thinking that would be those 2 days, Christmas Eve and the half day of Thanksgiving would be additional days, but we could, if we wanted to compromise, we could add one more floater, and then people could use that day however they wanted. They could use it for the, you know, they'd have 1 extra floater, and if they wanted to use it day before Thanksgiving or day before Christmas or day before anything, they could use it for that. I think Thanksgiving, if you have Thanksgiving Day and then the Friday after Thanksgiving, that's pretty standard, I think, in most companies and most places. So we could just say one more floater, not actually assign it to a specific date, and then people could use it however they wish if we're comfortable giving one more day.
And I guess that's the question I'm asking of Drew. If 8 set days and 4 floaters, does that total of 12 days keep us on par with other area communities? Do you know that answer?
Yeah, I don't want to. I think it's probably true. Everybody has different compensation packages, right? It's made up in different ways, salary, time off, and so forth. So I think generally these holidays are not too dissimilar. The number of days, right? It's not too different. And again, like I said, this is when surveying, no other community had the Thanksgiving Eve off, right? That's just, most people don't, kind of, I'll call quote unquote, observe that holiday. But
right.
To answer your question, I think it's probably not too far off standard. This is pretty standard holidays schedule.
I agree. I'm just saying that, when we say, oh, gee, wouldn't it be nice or reasonable to take off the last half of the day before a big holiday? Of course, everyone says, yeah, that's great. But what we're doing is changing a policy to say that we're actually increasing the number of paid days off. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm proposing, are we saying 4 floating days become 3 floating days plus these 2 half days that are named? Is that what we're trying to do, is keep the total number of days the same? Or are we actually increasing the number of floating holidays? And many will choose to take them, as Kathy described, on these days where hardly anybody is showing up at Village Hall. Not a lot of work gets done. Nobody's going to argue against that being the case. That is definitely the case. Most people have other things on their minds. So
I would argue that a lot of things do get done then.
That's when we hope they take the holidays is when there isn't work to do, but perhaps they would take holidays and other days when they're super busy. One question that I have, Drew, is how would this have any effect on our CBAs? I know as a municipal employee, if we work on one of the village holidays, since my work doesn't shut down for village holidays, if we work on a village holiday, we get paid additional. So in our case, in Lake Bluff, would that have any effect on our CBAs?
It could. I mean, immediately the holidays are defined in those respective agreements, right? And right now they don't 100% match up, right? Obviously, the police are given a number of days. They're working whenever their schedule, tells them this is when you're working. Forget, whatever day of the week, or if it's, Christmas Day, or pick a holiday, right? So with our public works, they have a specific set of holidays, which includes some days that are not, necessarily. I know they take off Veterans Day, which is something that they've always done. It's been a part of their CBA, but again, Village Hall is open that day, right? So there's not a uniformity in terms of holiday schedules. It's something to consider. Again, this is, I guess I should say that this is something that the village president's recommending. I didn't recommend this. This is something full disclosure, this has been somewhat.
This is definitely coming from me. I think it started out when I couldn't believe, I'll be honest, I couldn't believe that we were open on Christmas Eve. When I know that very little gets done. I'm going to go back.
See, I would argue against that, President O'Hara. Things get done when they're holidays and the phone's not ringing. You can get a lot done.
I realize I don't disagree with you. I used to go into work on Sundays, stuff like that. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that in terms of the community, I would dare say that there's very little community interaction, on Christmas Eve. People are not planning to do that. What happens if we took up Joy's idea of an additional floater days that people could utilize as they wish for that? Or not?
Well, they get 4, right? They get 4.
Yes.
Floating holidays.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why would we need to give them an additional day if they already have 4? And if they want to take half a day for Christmas Eve or half a day for Thanksgiving Eve? I mean, I definitely appreciate Christmas Eve. I think we could definitely justify a a half day, close at noon, go home after a half day of work on Christmas Eve. I think we can do that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know about the Thanksgiving Eve, though. I just
thought that was the purpose of the floater, you know, that because some people don't celebrate Christmas. Some people, you know.
Right. You know, it seems to me that what was initially proposed was an additional, effectively a day 9 or 9.5 to the set days, with continuing to have the 4. I don't have a vote here, but it seems to me that if it's our interest to provide a little bit of extra flexibility to people here, let them be in, as Joyce said, let them be in control of it. Why not offer a 5th floating day and let people figure out, you know, they may choose to not do Christmas, but want to do Thanksgiving based on their family's holiday plan.
I think they do have that flexibility already with 4 days.
I understand that, but they may already have sort of, I don't know about you, but we kind of budgeted my flex days when I was working. We kind of knew where those were going to go and what we were going to do with it. So if we're adding something to, if it's our interest to add something, then I you know, and it sounds to me like the point Aaron was making about certain employees, if that becomes a flex day, then they're sort of in charge of it. It's not a fixed day for us. So I don't know.
Well, Chair Ankerman, I think I'd like to wait. Sorry, Drew, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
Oh, Chair Ankerman, I think where I'm coming down, I have no problem certainly with flex days being built in one way or another, but I think my disappointment looking at these 8 holidays is that we do not have the Martin Luther King holiday in here. And I think that's something that ought to be added. And that would really, from my point of view, be a topic of discussion first before we're talking about Christmas Eve or others. And I think we're behind in recognizing something that's pretty important. And that's my comment.
What I was going to offer is to further this conversation, we can do this. If it seems to me that there's at least there's a different way to approach it, but the idea of a net zero to increase flexibility, we can look at something and bring back one schedule that includes, you know, more flexibility. And maybe it's the, 7 and 5 versus 8 and 4, you know, something like that. That's what I'm hearing. There's more comfort with that than a net 1. Yes, I know, Aaron, you certainly said a 0.5, you're okay with that. But so we can do, I mean, I know it's what, we have 6 minutes to get through some stuff. So I guess if we can get clarity on the other places, we can come back to this, if that's all right with everybody. We can come back with more information and set another meeting to further this along, to include Trustee Meyer's thought about, you know, maybe having a more, a different list of holidays.
I think that sounds like a good idea.
If I could just add one thought for comment, not to drag it out, but we're pretty small, and to add another personal day that's flexible really doesn't allow everyone who would want to take the Christmas Eve or the holiday off the opportunity to do so. And that's the existing problem. You know, when you have 2 or 3 or 4 staff people in there, half staff has to stay, regardless of whether you want to be off on Christmas Eve or not. That's my only comment.
and I know all about that, having to do that as well where I work, and that's why I'm okay with. Actually, I would encourage that Christmas Eve be a half day, knowing that not everybody celebrates Christmas or Christmas Eve, but I would say that probably the majority of our staff do, and allowing for people to go home after a half day on Christmas Eve, I think is good. I think it's fine, and I would encourage it.
Okay, have we concluded that discussion? Unfortunately, we have an informational item that is very detailed with the draft capital improvement plan.
The only thing I would offer.
I don't know at this point.
Chair Anchorman? As far as the other items on the, with respect to the part-time salary changes and the other adjustments and the range, is there comfort with those? Is there a motion for those?
I agree. I think we discussed, the only question I had was about that incentive to employees to give advance notice, and you say it's irrevocable. I mean, does that mean that if I say I'm going to retire in August of this upcoming year, but you need me to stay, or I choose to stay, I can't extend my work? I know what you're trying to do is prevent the opposite, where I don't let you know when I'm leaving, and then I give you just a 2-week notice. And obviously, a position of great complexity would need a little bit more time to hire someone with the good qualifications and get them up to speed. I just wondered if that was something that other municipalities were doing, and if we really feel like that's something that's going to bear any fruit.
So your concern is if somebody says, like, comes in tomorrow and who's, a new employee and says, I want my $750 today. Is that what you're asking?
No.
Okay.
No, let's say I had been working there for years, and so I say I'm going to retire in August, and August comes around and you need me to stay, or I choose to stay longer. That's not going to prohibit that, correct? You're just trying to prevent the opposite.
Correct. Yes, you're correct.
Right? Okay. I just wanted to be sure about that. And then this one-time incentive, I don't know how many people are going to do something different as a result of that incentive, but I was wondering, do other municipalities have experience with doing this, and has it helped? Or is this kind of just, it seems like that ought to be a good carrot, and let's try it.
Some communities have done it. We've surveyed some that have utilized it. When I asked to put this in, this came up about, I don't know, almost like 18 months ago. I discovered it. I heard some other community was doing it, and I forget what particular situation we were going through at the time. Maybe we were looking for a chief of police, but the idea of having a softer landing seemed like a very good thing at that time. And since then, I think we've looked, and some other communities have been using it. And I'm trying to think of the one that most recently came up. Yeah.
Well, I guess I was just being, kind of the devil's advocate and saying, well, let's say I'm planning on retiring in 2 years. I tell you I'm going to retire in 6. I end up exceeding that. I'm basically increasing my pay. I've increased my value just by giving you a ridiculously aggressive, retirement date, and then you want me to stay, and I stay, and you know what I mean? I'm just being devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much it's going to actually change behavior and be of value.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, but I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
So if anybody else.
I'm certainly, I can get a form agreement and share that with you all. In the meantime, this doesn't have to happen today. This particular element, of course, is a change, and I can work through that and get some more details and share those.
Okay. So do we have a motion to accept the other changes of the pay plan and the part-time salary, descriptions, eliminating administrative? Do we have a motion to accept all of those other proposed pay plan changes? Thank you, Erin.
And second.
All right. And roll call, please.
Trustee Meyer.
Aye.
Trustee Toll.
Aye.
And Chair Anchorman.
Aye.
Thank you.
So the informational items in the staff report, do we want to try to just say something in a minute, or just put this off to the next finance committee?
We'll tell everybody at 7 p.m.
Yeah, I prefer to discuss it at the next finance committee meeting, and we might as well set that at 6 p.m. at least before the next village board meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Do we have okay.
So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Are we on a separate Zoom for the village board meeting?
Stay right here.
Good. Thank you.